Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Robert Raven here. Today, we will be reading one of the short stories out of my self published short story and poem book, beginning on page 5 The Pillars. Long ago, before the creation of mankind, there were 12 beings with incomprehensible magic power. They were known as the Primordials. These 12 Primordials all came together in pairs, and through their pairing of their magic, each pair of Primordials gave birth to one new being. These beings were the second generation of primordials, known as the gods. The primordials and their children lived in peace for thousands of years until one day when the primordials felt their power begin to weaken. Scared that their immortal lives were coming to an end, the primordials gathered their children to inform them of their loss in immortality. As all the primordials and gods gathered together, the primordials, in their fear to no longer exist, decided to not inform their children of the loss in their magic power. Instead, the primordials all gave the blessing of creation upon their children and told them, "Make children of your own and enjoy the realms that we have created for you." Not realizing what they had just done, the primordials went to the higher realm, and they left the lower three realms, the heavens, the earth, and the underworld, to their children. These six gods were excited to no longer be alone, and in their excitement, they began to create children of their own throughout the three realms. These children are known as the third, fourth, and fifth generations of primordials. The first of these children were the plants that began to cover the three realms. The gods gave these plants a small amount of magic, allowing them to produce basic magical effects. The second of these children were the animals that roamed through the three realms. The gods gave these animals the ability to produce medium magical effects. And the third of these children were monsters. At first, the gods relished in the creation of the monsters, for none of their children so far had been so strong. The monsters, though not very intelligent, they could produce advanced magical effects. And it wasn't until the monsters began to kill the gods' other children that the gods began to realize that if their children, the monsters, were to ever gain intelligence, they might be able to overthrow them. Worried about what they had created, all the gods gathered, and together they went to the higher realm in order to inform their parents of what they had unknowingly done. Unknown to the gods, the primordials had begun to grow visibly weak. When the gods arrived in the higher realm, at first their parents were overjoyed, until one of the parents, the primordial that ruled over time in the higher realm, began to speak. I already know what you children have done without thought. You are no longer worthy of our blessing of creation. At first, we birthed you into the realms, not knowing that we had given you the majority of our power and our immortality. But as the time passed, we grew comfortable with the day that our children would gain our magic and become the new first generation of primordials. You, on the other hand, have created many children, some of which you cannot control, and that will be your downfall. One day your children will become the first generation of primordials after they slay you and take your magic. Once that happens, the four realms will belong to them and their children. Five of the gods began to laugh, and one stayed silent. If you knew that we were going to ask for your help, then why have you denied us and instead given us a ridiculous prophecy? The primordial of time began to speak once more, his voice so deep that it immediately drowned the laughter. We have not denied you, and I have not given you no prophecy, only the knowledge of the recycling and rebirth of the immortals. As the primordials all stood up, the higher realms began to tremble and shake. Our time has almost come to an end, the primordials said to the gods. Take this one last gift and this one last warning. Whether you listen or not is your decision. Five of the gods chose to only gain the gift that was offered, not caring for the warning of beings that were about to no longer exist. Only the god who did not laugh chose to listen to the warning. After the warning was given, the primordials began to slowly disintegrate, and as they did, all the gods that had laughed cried a single tear, while the only god who chose to listen did not cry at all. The tears of the gods rained down on the lower three realms, crystallizing into seeds as they hit the grounds and fell into the waters. Angered, the silent god did not show any sadness for the loss of her parents. The other gods used their magic to kill her and absorb her magic and immortality, equally dividing it amongst themselves. The silent god's blood soaked into the higher realms, reforming it to its previous glory. And as her blood seeped down into the lower realms, the sixth generation of primordials, known as humanity, was born. Coming to the realization of what they had just done, the remaining five gods all began to feel the weight of their loss. From the silence, one God began to speak. What are we going to do about those things that she made upon her death? You do all understand that those things contain the pieces of her soul, and that makes them even more of a threat than our children, the monsters. Another God spoke up. Her soul is gone. She shattered it apart, giving birth to children that she could truly call her own. What a beautiful last creation, sister. I promise to protect them in your place. The other gods agreed that humanity could continue to exist under the conditions that they were to live, grow, and learn on their own, and no god would be allowed to directly intervene with the outcome of humanity. I hope you have all enjoyed this short story. Like, subscribe, and follow the channel for more. Thank you, and I hope you all have a nice day.